I'm Martha Fox. I co-founded lastminute.com and I'm now the UK government's champion for digital inclusion. I wish I had a crystal ball and I could look for certain into the future, but I guess the great news is that you can never quite predict what's going to happen. But one of the things that I really think will now properly begin to dominate is the use of the mobile web. You know, with the advent of smartphones, you really can, as a user, get a great experience via your mobile. And I think that will just become more and more prevalent and more deeply engaged. And it's interesting if you think about some of the people perhaps that have never learned to use a computer and how they'll adapt to a mobile. I think that the app scene has opened up enterprise on the web in that, you know, anybody now can design an app for smartphones and get their products and services out there in a different way. The second thing that I think will be a trend that you'll see more and more of is peer-to-peer relationships and how they're changing. Already, you know, people I'm sure are sick of the word social media, but the way that if I'm a user of a service or if I'm a user of a product, I can recommend it to someone else and then perhaps get something back for that recommendation, whether it's payment or another incentive. The way that, you know, networks are building in a completely different and interesting way than they have done before. So, for example, I read recently that people who look for health information online trust their friends that they meet online and communities that they go to more than they trust doctors. So that's a big shift. So all of these things I think will change the relationship that businesses have with users when you have to think about, okay, I may be in a store, I may be on a mobile, I may be on television. You're catering for lots of different needs and wants at different times. I think that the opportunity for web entrepreneurship is still very exciting. I think there are many more things that you can do than you could do in '97. You know, when we were building technology, there were many more difficult, complex systems that you had to link in. Now so much more is open source. You can get so much more for free and so much cheaper. But I also think that we have to be realistic here in the UK, where we have a market that is much smaller than the US market, and that perhaps is why we've got so few big internet businesses of scale that have come from the UK that haven't sold ultimately to a US company. The rise of Google is one of the biggest differences between pre-lastminute.com and post-lastminute.com, speaking from my own experience. You know, that's a big change, and they really do now dominate a market and can make or break the fortunes of a new startup, which is, you know, something that I think we have to think about here in the UK. So I'm enormously respectful of what Google have achieved, but I think that it does also change the dynamics in a market when you've got such an overbearing competitor that can move you up or down its rankings in a seemingly quite opaque way. Back last summer I was asked to take on the role of champion for digital inclusion, which basically means having a look at the digital divide in this country, particularly with a focus on the most disadvantaged people. Approximately 10 million people here in the UK have never used the internet, quite a significant number. And even more alarmingly to me, 4 million of those people are also the most economically and socially disadvantaged. And I'm excited because I think it's very achievable to create a much more connected UK. And I actually think we shouldn't be satisfied with a 75% penetration of the internet. We should be satisfied when we reach a 99% penetration, because then we really do create something special and powerful within a society.